It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
I think the volume's better this week because I didn't see Mark kind of win. Oh, you know what I forgot to do, Mark?
You forgot to press record.
I forgot to press record. All right. I think we're recording now. Are we recording now? I don't even know if we're recording now. Probably. So it's good enough. Good enough.
You know, I love that each show we get better and better at this, and we sound more like professional podcasters each week.
Yeah. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to the first time that we've ever done this. We're gonna be surprised at how much different it sounds. And by different, I mean the same.
I know.
So.
I was also thinking about before, you know, our usual ritual like we do with our show is like it's sort of like a Zoom meeting. Well, we do meet on. Well, we don't meet on Zoom. We meet on Restream.
It's Restream,
but we approach it like we do a Zoom call. We're like, do you do the same thing I do? Like hop on like 30 seconds right before the meeting starts.
Pretty much. I mean, we're what are we? We're a minute late, I think, from our normal time. This show because I was trying to get kids out of the back room like that. Like you know the BBC guy on Zoom when he was there. He was there doing some. Oh, there are more bumper music. Who knows? The people that listen to the podcast won't hear that bumper music because that will be edited out. But you remember the guy who was like doing some phone call, home interview on the BBC, and then his toddler walked into the room. Mm-hmm. I was clearing the downstairs of toddlers for a second.
Oh, okay.
I just heard a beep, so that means piano lessons have started. So who knows? Who knows whether headphones will be employed or not? We could have some musical interludes behind us today.
That's nice.
I don't know. We'll see. Anyway. That's no headphones. I can hear it already starting. So we should be good. We should be good.
I think you also need to work on your professional podcaster setup at home. I think you need like your soundproof room that you could lock yourself into.
Yeah. You just have you're just in the basement, right?
I'm just in the basement, yeah.
Yeah, with all your Marvel figurines behind you, whatever.
The most I deal with these is like just loud stomping above me. That's usually what I have to deal with. Or the dog like freaking out and barking that you hear around the house when somebody comes to the door.
Yeah, I get loud stomping below me, and that's like children just running like thundering herds of I don't know. When they all get going at the same time too, that's the fun part. Anyway,
so how was your week, Tim?
Well, I mean, good. I just finished editing this morning, so I remember what we talked about last week. Because I just finished that up.
A little refreshed.
We ended talking about the Incredible Machine and how wonderful a game that is. I'm surprised it hasn't been ported to the Switch because I think the Incredible Machine on Nintendo Switch would be an amazing game.
I guess the bigger question is who owns the IP of that, which I
believe it's Disney now. Believe it or not.
Well, that makes sense why it's probably not available everywhere.
Yeah, I think it was bought by somebody who was bought by somebody who was bought by Disney, if I'm not mistaken. But the original author did create the Contraption Maker, and I remember that coming out a couple years ago, and that's on Steam. You can still get that for like $5.
So was that inspired by the Incredible Machine, the Contraption Maker?
It's very similar. Like you've got the conveyor belts and the candle and the dynamite, and it was like when you remember there's the levels in the Incredible Machine where I don't know if they weren't really level. You had the levels that you had to solve, like do this.
Get this object to this area.
Right,
here,
put the
like
cat in the basket, or move the balloon to the top, or something like that. But then there was like the gameplay where you could say, just let me do whatever I want to do, and build whatever I want to build. And I think that's what Contraption Maker is. It just pretty much lets you do whatever you want to do. I don't know if there were levels in it. I think I have it on Steam. I haven't played it for a while. But Contraption Maker.
Yeah, I think the Incredible Machine was one of the first games that kind of got me really interested in like builder games, kind of like open sandbox style, building style games like SimCity. Big SimCity 2000.
I remember buying SimCity at Sam's Club. I think
it came in like three or four floppies.
Oh,
like the not the 3.5, 3.25.
Right. Well, yeah, not the actual floppy floppies, the non-floppy floppies, right? Yeah. I don't know. I think by the time I bought it, it may have been on a CD. But SimCity was great, and then I never got. Did you ever play The Sims? I never got into The Sims. That to me just seemed. I did
a little bit. I kind of like the part of The Sims where you can build up the house. I kind of like the architectural style. Buy stuff, put in your house, organize it, managing the lives of Sims.
Right. So you don't have to buy stuff and put in your own house.
Correct.
Right, you
And
don't have
it
to
was,
organize your own house. You can organize your sim house, and you can feel like you accomplished something.
yeah,
I like that.
you can build your own mansion, but like managing the Sims' lives, making sure they went to the
No.
bathroom, make sure they didn't start
What
fires or make
would
sure
they
they
do
didn't
that?
get
Would they just like
abducted by
leave?
somebody.
Would they leave a
What?
candle burning and catch their house on fire? Is that
No,
what they
it's I
would?
think with cooking. I think
Oh,
if you started to cook something and it would set the kitchen on fire. So
world. Now I
but then
remember
it's also
playing.
you get so irritated by them and you intentionally start those things to happen because you get so frustrated by these Sims, like having to tell them when to go to the bathroom and tell them to get up to go to work and like to cook their meals, and like you just want bad stuff to start happening to them.
You'd
It is
you'd
what
have
it
to
is.
tell them to cook their meals.
Yeah.
They just like stand there doing
Well,
nothing unless you're
they will.
like,
They'll complain that they'll say they're hungry. They'll
"I'm
whine there.
hungry."
They'll get all moody.
So wait, it was the frustration of like the Tamagotchi pet things with the
Yeah.
customization of SimCity, huh?
I was never into that. Like I love building games. Like one of my also favorite games I always will go back to, like probably like once or twice a year, is a Roller Coaster Tycoon,
Okay, yeah.
which I think I talked about that in the show. How like it's fascinating the story about that, about the guy who developed it, written it purely in assembly, and
Yeah, you said something
and
about
it
that.
was such a great game. It was so fast, so efficient, ran on pretty much everything,
Now
even if you had a
remind
super low
me,
end PC.
because I think I played Roller Coaster Tycoon. It's very
Mhm.
similar to the sim genre, right? Where you would like build the roller coaster.
Yeah, well, you build like a theme park, but the nice the coolest feature about the game was its roller coaster builder that had like
Right, because you were actually
the
building the
pieces that you
roller
could put together.
coaster,
Yeah, and then
right?
you could you couldn't. It's a 2D isometric game, top down isometric style game, and so you could ride, you could test out the rides and run
Mm-hmm.
them, but basically you just see these like little like
Okay.
people just walking around. You can kind of pick up and place, and then also see their reactions that they come over the ride. But just like building the theme park and building the rides, like the roller coasters, that was a great game. I lost many, many hours of that.
Now, was it like a square kind of, what do I want to say, like a map when you build a?
Yeah.
Because I don't
So
remember it. So
it's a predefined. It's sort of like how SimCity 2000 was. So it's
you
a
like throw a
predefined
loop
grid.
here, throw a hill here, throw a curve
Yes.
here concept.
Yes.
Like you're building a top-down racetrack almost.
Yeah, and you could actually they had like environmental tools. You could sort of like dig into the
Oh,
you could
nice.
dig up, add more mountains. So it's cool. So if you want to build a roller coaster and have it go through a mountain, you could build the mountain for it. And so it was a really good tool set for such an early game that
Yeah,
was
because it's
written in
been around
assembly. And it
forever.
still runs great. It's funny, like actually on if you have iPhone or Android, if you go to the Google Play Store, you can find it there. You can find the original game that they ported it over to, and it actually works pretty well on a touch mobile device. I can just kind of pinch and zoom to kind of zoom into it, because it doesn't really have that many zoom levels. I think had like maybe 3 or 4 zoom
Mm-hmm.
levels, and so it
Right.
basically snaps between those. And it still has, even with if you can pinch in far enough or zoom in far enough, you can still kind of tap the individual grid spaces to be able to select them, or select lines, or areas of the grid to lay down a ride, or to start to construct the roller coasters. But it still works pretty well on a touch device. So I would definitely recommend trying it out.
Roller coaster tycoon. Now, not to be confused, but the other day I was in Target, I think, and I was walking through the game aisle, and I saw there was Raccoon Tycoon,
They
and
still have the game aisle in
yeah, they still have a game aisle in Target, yeah. And there was
for
the board game called Raccoon Tycoon, and I just want to make sure no one
oh,
gets
you're
confused.
talking about
It's
the board game area, which I think is still a pretty good
yeah,
board game selection. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I don't know if they have computer games
I think it's
at
like
Target.
one
I wouldn't have been
shelf
in
that
there.
they still
Yeah,
may have, like one shelf of like computer
of computer games.
games you could
I
buy.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. But no, I just want to make sure no one's confused and goes for Raccoon Tycoon instead. I saw that. I'm like, I have no idea what this game is. What in the world is
Like
a Raccoon
farm like a family
Tycoon?
and
I don't,
and a
I don't,
civilization of raccoons.
I guess it says, I'm looking at it now on Board Game Geek. Towns, factories, railroads. I don't know. But I don't know if you're animals. It looks like you're animals, and I don't know. Yeah. So, but not Roller Coaster Tycoon. Roller Coaster Tycoon, definitely try. I'm a little bit on the fence with Raccoon Tycoon myself, but no, those Sims. I love the Sim. Like I played SimCity. I think SimCity 2000. That was the big one. That was, and you'd always
Yep.
put your factories towards the corner, share the pollution with the neighboring cities, all those type of tricks. I like. Did you ever play Sim Tower?
I think I know what you're talking about, but I never got into it.
I liked Sim Tower, and I think what I liked in Sim Tower is what you're saying you liked in The Sims, because Sim Tower, you'd build a skyscraper and then say, okay, here's going to be some penthouses, here's going to be some apartments, here's going to be a ballroom, and then very Sim City like, only focused right on a tower. So
you pretty much have the same experience of Fallout Shelter. You should take a look at that game.
What was that?
So Fallout Shelter.
Yeah.
Which is another kind of mobile game.
Oh yes, I think I've seen that.
That kind of takes that same mechanic you're talking about, like basically a 2D style game where you build like areas within the shelter for your residents or the people who are either born in after the apocalypse or who are left over.
You like be able to go out for a couple hours and scavenge for or shovels and stuff, and then come back and then dig down more. And it was instead of a skyscraper.
So once again, I love those styles of games, and I get into them. But then once it's the people management part of it, which is probably why I should never be a manager in a business, because I just get irritated by the little people. I just get tired of it. It's like, all right.
So you were like, education would be a good field for me. I don't like people that are needing me to express to them what they should do. I should be a teacher.
Now, I actually know when I've had a couple positions where I have done some managing people, I actually do like. I do like, but it's just for some reason where it comes from a computer, like until
they become annoying, and then
because you're fighting with the algorithm. You're fighting with this predefined algorithm that you get frustrated with, and especially as a programmer, you're like, why does it work this way?
So have you ever built one of these games? Because you dabble, I think, in a little of you do interactive stuff.
I do like I've done like 2D either puzzle games and 2D side scrollers. That's kind of the most of the style of games I built. But I've thought about doing like an isometric style building game. There was a game for my travels over in Japan. I thought about making like a because I was talking to some faculty over there and doing this project with them. But then, it's kind of one of those things that it's kind of in the back burner. Kind of something I think about, but it was like, I don't know if I really want to commit to, because I don't know if I could really like sell it or make money out of it. But doing like a disaster simulator style game where like you'd build structures like houses or buildings that would be next to a shoreline. So you could like see how well you can build a house that could survive like a tsunami or could survive like an earthquake. Because that was one of the things of faculty that I met with over there. They their universities are really big on natural disaster prevention.
Right. Well, yeah.
So like for like engineering and for making sure that the building they have good codes for their building processes and everything like that. So and they have really cool simulators there. So I went over there. I saw these simulators where they simulate earthquakes, they simulate tsunamis. And I was like, oh, this would actually be a pretty cool video game. Because think about the building structure of it. Think about how you could because this is what they do to test it. They basically get like wooden structures that they build out of like toothpicks or wood blocks.
Oh, really?
That they either do like a Velcro or they do some type of fastening system that they use to simulate small buildings. And then and I thought, well, okay, what if you had like a digital version of this? So you could like build a building and then see how well your building could withstand an earthquake or a tsunami. So I don't know. It would be kind of interesting to
still do that like that.
I don't know if other people would find that interesting.
You're still looking
at
it from a 2D perspective?
I was thinking it would be purely 3D because you'd want to be able to see the structure, be able to move around it, and I started to prototype it in. I think it was a Unity I started to build it into, and I had the base kind of platform, and I also had like the ability to kind of snap wood pieces together and start to build walls. But then I also had like a little like the device I would stand on would be kind of this platform that would move back and forth. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to study, the frequencies of earthquakes and try to simulate that. This is basically what they do. And they have this mechanical platform, which is pretty cool, that has different axes that it can move on. And then you could just kind of simulate that and kind of get some motion that would be similar to different sizes of earthquakes. So I don't know, it was something, but I was also really, okay, for me to do that, I had to really kind of dive into it. And I don't know if it'd actually be a type of game that I could actually sell. And it'd be a cool educational piece or, as a research piece, I think it would actually be pretty cool, but I don't know.
That'd be an interesting use of like the Unreal Engine or the,
because I think just because having like a 3D, it would have like a nice look to it. It wouldn't be, I wouldn't go for like a realistic style, that high of fidelity, but it would be, you could get some nice good lighting and you could see like, so if you're putting together like, walls or wood, that's one thing. You have a 3D engine like Unreal or Unity, you could, for doing environmental lighting is actually relatively easy and to get a good look to it, I think.
And how much do those libraries give you in terms of like physics? Because that's what you'd be talking about. I'm going to shake this thing. What's going to happen? What?
Well, you have some basic physics with like gravity and like you can supply and like mass. So you could set like the mass factor on certain objects and also the overall kind of gravity settings. And then you could also have certain, if you want to simulate wind or other forces that you want to apply on top of objects, that they are kind of already, that has systems that are already built into it. But then either you have to make a choice of either you're going to customize this or work with the existing physics system or add your own onto it. So what I was starting to do was basically just, I think I was using the default gravity, but I was kind of pushing the platform where the pieces or the structure would stand on top of. I was animating, pushing that with my own forces, by my own procedures, but then still having it.
So it's still within their engine, but I'm applying force.
Yeah.
And seeing how that.
So
yeah, because it seems like
pretty interesting. Yeah,
like you'd also have to model like how things are connected. What's the strength of that connection? What's the hinge points and all that? I'm guessing they give you.
When I started going to do, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, honestly, I'm going to have to partner with somebody who really is like an architectural engineer. Like a lot of this stuff, like I think it would be cool to kind of program, but then finding a lot of the correct values or the correct systems I would need to use or to apply, that I would need somebody else, because this is not my thing. I'm no interest in kind of doing a lot of research in regard to finding the correct weight measurements for certain style of structures, or I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an architect. I don't know.
Right, and even like how the forces play, because like when you tell an engine, oh, these things are together, like I don't know how Unreal and Unity that says are they together until such a force is applied.
Yeah, because I was thinking to do it, you want to try to make it as accurate as possible to make it work, because it's supposed to be sort of also an educational piece, because that's what they do over in Japan with their educational system. How they, everybody's go through either a few courses where they kind of have some level of knowledge of disaster prevention, so they can understand building codes, understanding what to do, what not to do, and also for the engineering students, they're really, really well versed on it. So I think from an educational perspective, that's also, I was looking at, if I partner with somebody of Japan to do it, it would also be primarily used by Japanese students. That's what we're talking about. Then I was like, hey, because I actually kind of like the now I'm escaping me, the not the translation, the terminology for localization. Yes, the localization actually part was kind of interesting because I was learning Japanese at the time. So so I don't know. But that all came out of my experience with building games. Yeah, because like that, it's something I've thought about doing. That was kind of the one style of game I thought about possibly making, but then it was got it pretty, realizing that the science, the engineering behind it would take pretty much was out of my depth, and I was like, okay, I'd have to really find a partner with this to actually do this for real. But I don't know.
You just fired up Roller Coaster Tycoon and built the theme park.
And then I got my
enjoy the rest of your night.
Got my kick from that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. Now I've pitched this before at like the startup weekends of the hackathons, but that idea of like the 2D top down style game. Mm-hmm. The one thing I've always been intrigued by, and now you can see that there's a couple games on the Switch where you can take two Switches and kind of put them together. And I don't know how it identifies how they're together. I don't know if it knows whether they're touching exactly, or if you can offset them, it still works. I don't have two Switches to play those games. But when you put them together, it kind of builds a map and they share it across the two Switches. And I think it'd be really cool to have some type of on the one hand, like a game building framework that's not so much about what do I want to say? Not like Unity or Unreal, where it's like, okay, the 3D engine, but just to allow you to play these collaborative games with devices. So say you're playing with a bunch of friends, and you could put a tablet down on the table, and you could put a phone next to it, and it would know, oh, we have a tablet and a phone. Well, the phone is immediately going to become a deck of cards. And the tablet is going to be the play surface. And when you want to deal, you just hit the top of the phone and you see what pops up. If it's kind of like you get top, like you deal it and then everybody sees the card. It becomes your deck of cards. And if you only have one device, well, you could play it all collaboratively on the one device. But the more devices you add, the more it becomes kind of this shared state. And the goal there is take things from, like, have you ever seen a bunch of people at a restaurant and they're all like playing a game together, but it's like Words with Friends, right? And they're all just looking at their device and say, no, we're going to play a game together, but it's going to be a game that requires us to be in the same room at the same table, and it still involves our devices, which is cool. But it has kind of like
So
this real-time shared state across them all.
how would you do the communication without having to rely on Wi-Fi or Bluetooth? Because those would be the two hindrances that actually get that to work. Because you have to connect to each, be on the same network if you're going to be using Wi-Fi, which is once they're all on the same network and you have some type of
it'd have to use the internet. It'd have to. Just
that's what I was wondering. Is there like a technology that exists that you can be able to build into a device that would?
I mean, there's this thing. I don't know if you know about this, but Google has this system where if you stick data into this, it's like a database. But when you stick data in the database, other clients can have registered to that particular URI, and Google will automatically push updates to that data right down to them immediately. I'm trying to think. No, it's called Firebase.
Oh, really?
You may have used it before. Wow. I don't know. But
I should take a look at that.
Yeah, you should. It should. It supports that idea. So something like Firebase, right?
Well,
where you have subscribers on the client side.
Yeah.
And you're sharing, because Firebase is great for syncing data across multiple devices. It's not their poster use case is mobile apps using it as their data backend, right? But you can use the Firebase real-time data store to subscribe to a particular ref, and then it'll tell you you'll get pushed as soon as that ref updates. Mm-hmm. So in that case, it'd just be a bunch of web pages. All of them subscribe to the ref in general, and as I interact with one device, it just pushes up to Firebase, mm-hmm. and then they all react and even the device that I touch, right? Input. Again, we talked about MVC and what it really means in terms of the internet and what it was way back in the days when Xerox came up with the concept. It's like, okay, so I've interacted with the view and I've pressed a button. We'll go update state, and then have state roll back down and say, hey, here's how you should now update your view accordingly, because everybody's subscribed to the Firebase. Even if it's the device that I'm touching, I'm interacting with, don't update state based on my touch. Just tell Firebase what event happened, and then everybody updates state. So if I swipe, if we have to put two phones next to each other, one's the deck, the other's like the turned over deck. I touched the one, it didn't even change its state, but the flip deck has a new card now because I've dealt a new card onto the flip deck. So and just with that concept, whether it's a card game, whether it's more like a Monopoly style game, but where you're using the devices in your hands collaboratively to
So I guess
play a
you
game
could do
together.
something like this. So if you had, so let's kind of keep going down your route. 'Cause I was thinking when you're talking about this, yes, using Firebase, using some type of real-time storage database that you could do this type of communication with. That's today's tech. That's I could totally see that happening. But then making it accessible as possible. So let's say you had an app on a phone, and then say same person had the same app, and to make it as seamless as possible. Like if you just walk next to somebody or you come up to somebody to play it, both of you will open up the same app, and then it would just basically start the game automatically. It wouldn't have to do this. Oh, okay, fine. You'd look at your friends list or find a connection.
Right. No.
See it. So I was wondering, could you do? I guess. Because position, so if you're on the same network and you're connected, it's because like I said, you're on a mobile device that has some type of GPS and you can track the location.
I would just make it like, for me, the MVP would be completely web-based, so it's all just a URL.
Well, I know about the MVP. I'm just talking about to make it accessible as possible.
Yeah, but when you're there, just put a QR code on whatever the page is to join and have someone scan it.
Oh no, don't even
follow
do that.
The link.
I'm even thinking about if you're just next to somebody, you both have the same app. And it just text location. Is that possible using location with, let's say, Firebase is tracking
in a browser though? Because I'm not talking about a mobile app. I'm just talking about.
I'm thinking about the mobile app.
Yeah. As accessible as possible is just it's a web page. I go to it. It says you want to have people join this game. Here's a short URL that you can just type into your phone, or you can scan this QR code and boom, you're there. Yeah. And it's all just games on web pages. Because, I mean, let's be honest, your mobile browser, in most cases, is powerful enough to do a lot of this.
No, I agree with that.
If it's not like a 3D rendered real time, okay, we're driving or we're fighting or we're running, and through a world. If it's a bunch of tokens and we're playing together, to move things or to draw cards or to roll dice or whatever part of the game it is, your browser's fine to even make that a very nice and slick visual experience.
No, I totally agree. I was just thinking about from a user accessibility standpoint. We're like, I agree, but they still have to open up the browser and open up the page, or they have to have the page bookmarked.
Right.
Because that is the benefit of having an app like that, especially if that app, if you do give the permission for that app to track your location, which I usually do not do at all. But let's say if you did have a game that was location based and you wanted to track how close you were to somebody else, and so you two can connect together in game, and as long as you gave permission for the to track your location, then I was saying because you could with GPS you get pretty close. Like, what's the distance wise? Isn't it like
I think it's like 3 feet.
10 feet? I was thinking like 10 feet, but I was like, okay,
I think
so
it's
if you're
like 3. I think
within that, so 3 feet's like pretty good.
Oh yeah, yeah,
to get pretty. So you could actually know you're right next to somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you could do it if it was on the app level. I just feel like from a game, that style game, to get people to me the friction is downloading it, and because if you tell me, oh, play this game with me, you have to download a thing to do it. It's like no, probably not. Probably not. Well, look at you talked about the other, a couple of shows ago now, the success of Wordle. Wordle's nothing more than an entire game and a web page that you happen to host in your cache.
That's true
because it's all right there. So the accessibility of that is, and because you can do it, I think you could probably pull all that off. The thing I don't have is one, the client side experience to write any of that, and two, really like a good idea of what game would you play that way. And I don't quite know. And I also kind of have this feeling, maybe I'm the odd one, but I feel like there used to be a day when you might go out with a bunch of friends and there might be a tablet or two there. But I feel like now it's pretty much we just all have our phones.
When you say a tablet or two there, you mean the
like an iPad or an Android tablet?
Like
no, I mean, in a group of friends go out together.
Okay.
Like somebody has a Kindle, somebody has an iPad, somebody has a Galaxy whatever they're calling a tablet now. And I feel like that was the truth maybe 10 years. Yeah, not 10 years ago. That's way too. Like 5 years ago. Oh yeah, I've got look at we'll bring it up on my tablet here. I feel like now it's more like no, we just all have our phones.
I would agree, unless you're somebody busy, because there are people who do prefer to keep all their notes on a tablet. So I see that around school where like people just carry their tablets around like a notebook, and they prefer they using the stylus or write their notes on it, and so they'll usually keep it with them all the time. So it's possible, especially if you're in a business situation.
But yeah, that and then.
But if you're just with a group of friends, I agree with you. Not many people are just like going out on a Friday night and carrying their iPads or their Android tablets with them. So.
But then trying to think like, so what game could you play that would, that could be that collaborative, and we put devices on the table and they all interact together. I don't quite have that one. I never had that one solved to figure out how to do it. But I thought it was a good idea. I think it could be a good idea. Someone could execute on that idea, and it'd be interesting. And speaking, since we're having this rambling discussion about building things and games and all that, it was my son's birthday this week.
Oh, really?
And have you seen? He's I have no idea. No.
Well, once you get up there with like you're up to 11 kids now, right?
No, not quite. I actually don't know the answer there either. I think it's 8. I'm pretty sure it's 8. Last time I checked, we did a little head count thing in the van. I'm pretty sure it's 8.
Nice.
But no, I know he's 7 because he has a T-shirt that says I'm 7. So that's very helpful for me.
You were seriously like the cheaper by the dozen dad.
Not yet. It's only 8.
You're getting closer to it. It's funny. Like
wait, wasn't that a?
I played that dad in a high school play, and then also Steve Martin did that in a
right. But wasn't I thought cheaper by the dozen. The plot was it was 2 families that together they were a dozen.
Oh no! Well, I didn't.
No, it was like
one family.
I thought it was a widower and a widow, and they got married.
Oh, that part I can't remember. Maybe that could definitely be.
I think that's how that one worked out. So
yeah.
Because that was what drove the plot. Is like now you've got a bunch of kids that were all kind of good in their own set, and now you're like, boom! Now you're a team. Figure that out. But no. So he's 7. But have you seen the Infento stuff? I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Infento, because it's spelled with an F. Infento.
I'm not.
I want to say it's a European company. It was a Kickstarter, and if you do any type of like industrial building and stuff, it's basically the 80-20 extrusions. that they have then created a bunch of assembly parts, so you can build scooters and bikes and wagons, and
this is pretty cool.
Oh, it's I've looked at it for a long time. We got him. We didn't get him like the big kit. We got a smaller kit, and I built that with him because his birthday was yesterday.
Because you're building practical, like I was looking at pictures here of like from a wagon to a scooter to a bike to a tricycle, from a tricycle,
right,
to and it's a wheelbarrow. Yeah, it's kind of like all these kind of different things you can build with the exact same materials. Right, and it teaches construction, teaches kind of tooling.
And it's the 80-20 aluminum extrusion that you would use, like if you build prototypes someplace, you know, or you're like in a fab lab building some, like you'd be using this stuff, you'd be familiar with this stuff. They just have it all set up so the connectors are there to be able to make these type of what they call rides, so these vehicles of some kind. And it was a really great experience because it's cool building like with the Legos. Or like the erector sets of years gone by, right? But those are all models. This is like we built something and then he's riding it around as a scooter. And I think him and his sisters, I think the older kids have gotten a little interested in it. They're going to take apart the scooter today and turn it into a skateboard.
Nice.
So that's been really cool. Now they have some bigger sets that we did not get that have electric motors and stuff, and you can build powered rides, and there's already kids being like, I would like that. And I was like, well, we might be able to upgrade to that. And then
I remember when I was a kid, we didn't have all these fancy kind of toolkits that were made for kids. Like I had to like go and scavenge like bicycle parts and put together some Frankenstein style like bike just to get the experience of like, oh yeah, let's see if I can like put this wheel that was from this tricycle onto this bike and see what happens.
I had that question yesterday though. He was like, I could take off my bike wheel and use it. I was like, no, we're not going to take the bike wheel off because we have wheels.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, that was one of my favorite hobbies to do as a kid, was go around the house, look for all electronics and just take it apart, just to see what's inside of it.
Yep.
And see if I could put those pieces I took apart with other things. It never really worked, but it was fun though.
see what happened. Might have been a little frustrating for your parents. I don't know. Maybe just a bit. But that's one of the reasons we got him, is because he'll go and he'll find whatever scrap wood he can find and nails, and he'll build stuff out of it. He'll build like little wagons, and it's like, well, now you can build a real wagon hopefully. And so I thought that was a pretty cool. Assemble it yourself, build it yourself. It's thus far it has been really, really interesting, and I'm hoping to. I've got some like the 3D printer and things like that we can maybe even make some custom parts for him to play with and do some stuff and get them into, get the kids more into learning about CAD and 3D, 3D design. Since you're doing it from a kind of a design and game and art perspective, I tend to like it from more of a sketching out thing that I want, and from a manufacturing side of things. But there are a lot of, the tools cross over a lot in how they work. It's just a different application. So getting them used to that tool set, so wherever they find themselves later, they're familiar with it. So
Tim, this after we got done with our show last week,
I
did download.
I was going to ask you, CLion?
JetBrains.
CLion?
I downloaded CLion. I downloaded WebStorm.
Oh, well, wait. I was only trying to convince you to try CLion because you're learning C, but you downloaded WebStorm too?
Fortunately, since I am... Well, okay, I first took a look at the prices, and I think you're getting a nice, sweet discount because you've been using the products for so long. And actually, I would give JetBrains credit. Because I'm not a big... Because of Adobe and kind of getting burnt, I don't know, just feeling like their software, just even though their subscription model is makes their software a little more accessible, it still feels like once you get on a hook for expensive subscription, it feels like you're paying into it forever. So I'm trying to pull away a little bit more from these things I've subscribed to, and take a look at JetBrains prices. Like it's a little bit pricey. It's kind of getting up there if you're a first time user. I think it's like between $50 or $60 per month for the whole suite of software like we were talking about, and they do offer a lot of different. Then once you, the one thing they're doing really, really big, which I think you're taking advantage of. Once you are a yearly subscriber, I think after like 3 or 4 years, you'll get like 40% off. So each year it's a little bit less.
I'm looking at it now. Well, and I don't know. I may have even got that to begin with because I think their pricing changed and I was already a subscriber. But I see what you're saying.
I like the way
year it's so much, and then it's 20%, and then it's 40% off. Oh,
so it does reward people for being longtime customers, and I think that is a good subscription model, and I kind of like that. But up front, though, you kind of like
no, but still, I'm looking at. I went to incognito tab, so I'm not seeing my pricing, right?
Mm-hmm.
For individual use, the all products, which is everything, is $249.
So it's roughly about like
a year.
Is it
a year?
Oh, you pay for all for a year. If you pay for like per month, I think it was like
the monthly billing,
bit, like $50 or $60, something like that.
Well, I'm seeing all products is per month. Now this is for individual. Make sure you're not using. I think you're looking for organizations.
No, I was checking the individual. But
for individual, it's only $24.
The nice thing also they're doing too, which I will give JetBrains credits to, since I am still an educator.
Oh, you
that they have a free educator subscription. So I was able. Oh yeah, cool. So I was able to try it out. For students and faculty, you could download it for. You get all their software for free. So it's great to try.
So you have all the JetBrains software for free now.
Well, I'm not going to install everything, but I did install WebStorm.
Everything. Did you install the toolbox though?
Yes, which is nice. It's a nice kind of slick interface.
Now, as soon as you're just like, I want to play with this ID, just hit a button and you'll have that one.
So I tried the WebStorm, tried the CLion. I would admit CLion, it's kind of slick, kind of clean, and it's pretty. I think for what I would use for the type of C++ I would do, I think it actually would. And then we talked about last week from a testing perspective, I think it definitely would make that easier.
And when you say the type of C++ you're doing,
which is going to be very simple, right? Initially, just going to be very kind of simple scripts. Like I said, I want to get to be I could like write it like a web crawler and do some like.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But then, the reasoning behind using C++ is because that is what you would use if you were writing something in Unity, or if that's something.
And that's true, and which I would normally just use Visual Studio for that, like Visual Studio.
But they have the Unity bindings and they have the Unreal bindings.
Yes, I may take a look at that too. But I tried WebStorm on a couple of my projects now, a couple of my React projects, and I was like, it's a little slow, but I was like, I tried it, and I tried to do some editing, and I was like, I went back to Emacs.
Really, it was.
It was because of, I wouldn't say it was slow. It just kind of felt just moving around. No, I think it's more or less me. I become now dependent on my key bindings moving around.
Yeah. Okay. You're saying it's slow to move through my files.
It's slow just for me personally. Yes.
Okay. So now
I didn't say from an interface standpoint.
Programmed yourself to hit double shift.
Double shift.
No, seriously. If you're not double shifting in JetBrains.
No, I don't know anything about that.
So double tap shift and just start typing.
I'm like a spacebar, Control X, Control C person.
No. Double tap shift, and that'll bring up the search dialog, and then just start typing. Like if you're like, I need to bring up this something file. Double shift, just start typing. It's gonna find it. You're looking for a method. You're like, I remember we called it, get pricing for user. Just start typing it, and it'll find where it is. It'll show you where it is. And there's other shortcuts. That you can, if you want to go to say, I want to run a specific action versus search through my files. But now, if you're not using their search bar, whatever you want to call it, find all, then that's going to be slow.
So I do like the finding kind of search feature, and I do the same thing with Emacs, and the Doom Emacs I use is like Dired, which is their kind of Dired, and there's another kind of search component that it uses for that. But just bring up. Press space bar period, and then it just brings up the search and can search the whole project, and it's pretty fast. The one thing I also liked, I like the searching for files to open them up, but then also I like
space bar to that. What's your key combo? Space bar period.
Yeah, to bring up the search. Like
I'd see if you can bind that to what JetBrains by default binds to double shift.
So and I also like having like a tree view of a project view, because I'm a visual guy, so I like seeing all the files in the tree. Even though I know it, like moving around and selecting files, it's a little bit inefficient. I would like a merger of the two, which I don't like how the fact of like if I search for a file, I would also like kind of see where it is in the tree view at the same time and have it open. Does it do something with that?
Well, I think you probably could do something like that. What I have it to there's the button on the side of my mouse. I have that when I hit it, whatever file I'm currently in, it will locate in the tree view.
Oh, that's nice. So you can bind that to like a key, and
especially since I have multiple tabs up, right? So I'm working on the test, and then I want to see the tests that are adjacent to this test. I'll just hit the button on the side, and boom, I'm right there in the project. All the tests that are like within this directory, within this concept. Or I've gone back because I have multiple tabs up, multiple screens, all that kind of stuff. And now I'm typing in the actual thing that I'm testing, and I need a sibling class. Hit this button on the side, boom, I'm right there in the tree view. So that to me, like when I can't do it, and there's some context where I can't do it with that button. either because I'm not programming on my main system, so I'm using the laptop, and then I have to remember the shortcut, which is like I think it's Alt 1, and that's like that brings up the locator, and then you say I want to locate this in the project view off to the side. Or I've been doing more and more of Code with Me, where you can say generate a link, send it to somebody else, they can open it, whether they have JetBrains or not, it works either way, and they see an IDE very similar to yours, and you can collaborate together. It's not like pairing where one person's driving while the other person watches them code and talks them through it, and they collaborate on it. It's literally both people can collaborate on it.
Yeah, which I think I saw the code premium functionality. I saw the demo for that, and that looks pretty cool.
It's slick, but the thing that's problematic, at least for me, is my custom shortcuts no longer work. So because I bound my mouse, that side button is to a specific type of keyboard shortcut, because there's not a direct shortcut to say open in project view. So I bound it to, hit this mouse button, open in project view. If there was, I could tell my mouse when I press that button, execute those keystrokes, and then it would work, in Code with Me. But I get frustrated because I'm like, I want to find this file in the project view, and hitting the side button on my mouse doesn't do it.
Yeah.
So that's the only place where for me it's, it gets frustrating, because I love that feature. For me is huge. The other thing I do is control click all over everybody does control click. So control click, if you're calling a method, like you have code that calls a method.
To reference like
control click, it'll take you to the declaration.
Declaration, yeah.
I just have it on my mouse where if I press really hard on the button, it does that. Because my mouse, it's a gaming mouse, so it has pressure sensitivity on the two buttons. So if I do over a 70% pressure on it, it will take me to the definition.
See, I don't even. That's the whole thing with when you're a Vim Emacs person. You don't want to touch the mouse at all. That was the other thing too. I had to kind of get over.
No, I like how the idea of peripherals. You think any benefit has stopped since 1972. You're like, no.
It feels so good not to have to use a mouse.
Don't want it. Yeah. I mean, he actually uses those who follow along probably realize this, but he uses Vim mode in Blender. He's never touched a mouse doing 3D modeling. He just keeps hitting bashings. He's like, make circle this big, drag here, and but he doesn't drag there, because to use a mouse, that's terrible.
When we're talking about editing graphics and editing 3D models, yes, I would agree with you. Using a mouse, that is crucial, or prefer also probably better as a tablet and a pen, depending upon what you're doing.
Oh, like a Wacom tablet, yeah.
But when you're coding and just be able to navigate and move and manipulate the interface too, also thing I found fascinating since I moved over to Doom Emacs, which is the Vim inside of Emacs, is just also manipulating the interface. Of not just manipulating your code to move around the code, which I was always super comfortable with Vim, but be able to open up, close windows, resize windows, just be able to manipulate the interface depending upon the project, or switch between projects in the exact same interface is super fast, just a few keystrokes. So I know once you get in that pattern and get addicted to it, it's hard to pull yourself off it. So.
I have keystrokes too, but when I'm doing, so here's when I'm hitting that deep click or the control click to go through to a different declaration, I'm usually not typing. This is times when I'm looking through the code. So looking through the code, what am I doing? I'm probably scrolling, because it's easier for me to locate stuff with my mouse. Because, by the way, I also have shortcuts there. If I press a modifier button on the mouse in the scroll wheel, then it doubles the scroll speed. So I can scan through a class pretty fast, and then, or maybe I've searched and found usages, but I'm working through the search results, just bouncing around looking at code. That's when those things happen. And that, I find navigating with a mouse easier than
See, it's funny. I've never customized my mouse before. Even though I love gaming mice just because of the sensitivity and the way they're built. I think that it's just the best mouses you could buy. But when I buy my gaming mouse, I buy the Logitech, which is the version of Z03, the GZ03, which is a very super minimal mouse. Here, I can see it from my screen. It only has a few buttons to it. I like the super minimal gaming.
I like how I put it up to the screen, but we couldn't see it because it's only half of its thing.
I know. So, but I like the minimalist of it. Right.
Okay.
Because I used to have gaming mouse, so I still do. I just don't use them anymore. But it has a ton of buttons with it, and you even have one that has a crazy amount to the side, right? You have one of those that has 20 buttons to the side of the where your thumb is.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's probably 12, maybe a little bit more. And I wish I was a gamer, because you can even tilt it to the side, and it's sensitive to. It has a gyroscope, right? So if I just lift up the one side, it knows that I've basically said think of FPS, it's basically I've said peak, right? Like it's built for that. It's built for that. There's another thing you do it a different way, it'll crouch, all that kind of fun stuff. But I just use it to automate the workflow, as I'm dealing with code. But yeah, sometimes I don't take my fingers off the keyboard. I'll move around and I'll use keyboard shortcuts. But when I'm getting a high level view of code and doing like code review, things like that, we're trying to figure stuff out, scrolling back and forth. Yeah. I find the mouse a useful way to do that.
It is. I think I like my mice too. I just like to keep it super, super simple.
Now I have seen, I'm intrigued by this because I like the Swift Point mice. I use their small one for travel. The mouse I have is a Swift Point Z, which they don't make anymore. I actually bought one of the last ones as a backup. But they've come out with a mouse that's more of a pistol grip or whatever you want to call it, like a vertical. Vertical
it's almost like a joystick, but not really a joystick. It's kind of has like
you still
around it, but
and so I'm intrigued to see is that actually more comfortable? Could I get used to that? Would I like it? So I may have to try my hand. Try my hand on one of those. That you were talking about though, you do obviously use a mouse when you're doing the 3D modeling, things like that. Have you ever used a 3D mouse?
I don't think so because it doesn't come to my mind. Even though it seems like I've probably definitely taken a look at them. Describe it for a second.
Yeah. It's like a now the term escapes me. But like the jog discs that you would have in say a video editing control set, where you just turn it one way or the other. They basically have the spinny wheel, right, that you could spin, and that will orbit it, and then you could push. It's like a joystick in that you could like a D-pad. Where you could push it in any direction, and then you can actually turn the top of it because it's
okay. So I've never used that. The only thing that's close to me using is remember those huge trackball mice you could do the big round ball that you could
take
like
your
do
entire hand and you'd be like, I'm trying to get through this page by pushing this bowling ball.
That was like a great idea. It's like people like when they first like the trackball mice, they just like, okay, we have this small ball that tracks like the movement of the mouse. Let's just take that small ball, put it up top, make it really big. It'll definitely be better that way.
And there were the little thumb ones where your thumb would rest on the ball and move it around.
Yeah.
But then there are the ginormous orbs of directional control where your entire
so what you're talking about from the current 3D mice, but it's sort of in a way kind of so you said you still have a device that you're
it's not a ball.
Like a circular type.
It's like a rotary encoder, like
rotary,
like a volume knob that you'd have. But it doesn't stop. You can continue to rotate it in any direction. But it's mounted so that's at the top like a joystick. So you can twist it. You can twist this cylinder any direction, and that takes your camera and it twists it around, right? And then you can push it in any direction like a D-pad, and that would then change where you move in 3D space. And I think there's another way that would change your rotation. I forget exactly how that works, but it allows you to basically fly the camera however you want as you're looking at a 3D object.
I can see that. Like when you get used to these applications, you get used to like what the Control, Shift, or Alt keys and the key combinations for either panning or
I use applications where right click a lot of times changes
or tumbling
orbit.
Yeah.
So, but I've looked at them and like, I can see the usefulness because then you don't have to change your context to what you're doing. Because it's a secondary input, right? If I'm like clicking on different things, different faces, trying to manipulate something, and then it's like, oh, I need to turn this around. Well, I could just turn it. I don't have to like go to orbit, then come back and be like, I hope I don't click something wrong and lose my selection. So no, I just didn't know with what you've done in Blender, if you've ever used one of those. I've looked at them and been intrigued.
I have not. Like I said, I just get used to keeping the mouse simple with a 3-button mouse and just do Control, Shift, or Alt and just do. Honestly, my other hand's on the keyboard. That's one thing when you use a 3D.
He only has 40 keys on his keyboard too. There's so many you don't need to use. They're just extra keys.
It's interesting with my esports guys that some of them do get into this whole like half keyboards. Like you just see these keyboards, it's sort of like it's like almost like you cut the keyboard in half and only has like the keys that you use.
And it's not like they split it in half like the ergonomic ones where
it's pretty much just half a keyboard.
Just like half a keyboard for just one hand?
Yeah. Because when you're doing like an FPS first person style game,
you just need WASD.
It's usually only half the keyboard and the rest of the keys like that maybe on the other side of the keyboard you could probably remap to like your function keys or
because in your other hand is your mouse.
Yeah. Because then actually, the more real estate you can give your desk space to having for the mouse, better. because you're going to be doing large movements with the mouse, and you really want the keyboard as minimal as possible.
Are you, or don't you, I mean,
yeah.
So
well, it depends
don't
on
they
your
have dynamic acceleration with the mice? Like,
oh, you don't want that.
No,
because you usually you want to have you actually turn all those
everything
all
precision all the time.
Yep.
Like a high DPI.
Yep.
So you want to be
it depends. Well, it depends what you're doing. You could want
a
low the low DPI and then a high reporting rate. So like how much the mouse is going to report back to your movement, but then you want basically a low DPI at the same time.
You should give your esports team should take a look at the Swift Point. I'm telling you, they should take a look at the Swift Point Z.
Well, they keep complaining about how they're not sponsored yet, so I don't know. Maybe I could reach out to them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But no, like I know with the buttons, I can change the DPI of the mouse on the fly.
I can do it too. Yeah.
So, but I mean, in like different, it'll. Yeah.
Usually the it's not reporting.
You wouldn't even need a keyboard. You could put them all here on the mouse. You could just play the whole game with one hand, and then you could literally say to your opponents, "We just beat you one-handed."
I don't. Maybe that's possible. I don't know. There is interesting too when like players, there are some pro players who like brag about the fact like if they go into a first person mouse keyboard style game and they play with a controller, like an Xbox controller. And they beat people with an Xbox controller. That is something to brag about.
I beat you with an Xbox controller? Okay.
Because you shouldn't be able to do that because the precision with the mouse and keyboard and compare that to a controller is not.
I can't imagine aiming with the directional pad. That seems terrible.
Yeah. Directional pad? You mean like a? Oh no, I'm talking
like an Xbox, like an Xbox controller, right?
But even just with the analog sticks, which you can get.
I guess you
movement there, but it's still
it's not that great.
You do get super good at it. Well, that's what when players do. They usually go around with like a shotgun or go with with a gun that has a big spray.
Something
so
that's
so it increases your range of like what you could be able to target. So
now, how do they do? Because last week they had lost one.
Yeah, well, they have this week was actually a forfeit by the other team because they're apparently one school that we were scheduled to play had their esports team, I guess a couple of players became ineligible in mid-season. So I don't know for whatever reason, talked to the coach about it, and they're like, "All right,
how does that happen?"
Academically, stuff could happen.
Oh, okay.
So they don't keep up.
Gotcha.
Or drop credits, or or just go to part time.
Like they all had put in a shimmed bootloader and were cheating.
No, I think it was because of either some students dropped classes and they weren't full time students anymore, or maybe a grade issue or something like that. So they had to forfeit. But I was able to schedule a scrim with another school that actually we're playing next week. So it was actually good. We played 3 games, just a practice games with another school last night. And they pretty good. Pretty much played the alternates and had like the senior players just watch them and comment on them. So that was actually a good experience.
Now you play all in the same room too, right?
Yeah, when we're on campus. Last week we're kind of distributed where some were on campus, then some. So if we're actually playing a real match, we'll try to all be on campus because then the ping, that's a big thing too when you're playing these games, keeping the ping low. Which when we're on campus, the ping is like around a 10 ping, so it's actually really really good when you're playing, especially when you're playing other teams that are average like between 30 or 40 or 50 ping. So so if it's a better experience if we can try to be in the same room, but we're just practicing, during the week, or if we just have a scrim, we'll just meet remotely, and it seems it works out fine.
Now, does being in the same room help in terms of collaboration and communication?
Between games, it does. So
not in game.
In game they're still mic'd up, so they're still they're mic'd. So I don't think there's really is a huge difference. But then they'll take a break in between games. They'll talk, discuss, what happened in the previous game, and kind of plan for the next game. So that is beneficial to stay kind of in the room in between games. But when you're just playing in game, it's the same experience. If they'd be playing from home or if they'd be playing next to each other, because they're all mic'd up anyway. That's where they're talking and hearing each other. So,
gotcha. It's been so long since I've done anything. All this new technology, mics and such, and headphones, and
that's where I would do like a fancy, good headset too. Like doing the show, like to have as nice, keeping the mic and the headset as high quality as possible. I'm sure the podcast people won't know this, but I feel like your ping is a little laggy right now because. Why? Could this actually bring up against actually I did update and reboot my computer, and the reason why it is slow right now because I turned on Backblaze this week.
Oh boy! So you are uploading everything.
So I forgot because I rebooted my computer before the show that this automatic, because I was pausing it this morning when I was uploading some video from last night's matches. And then I had just started back up again. So that's probably why my
that
my
would make
upload
sense.
was
All of a
dropped.
sudden,
So I
the
had to pause
upstream
that.
dropped a little bit. Yeah, no, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
But yeah, you losing the art department website and going through that process, I was kind of like, I need to have a better backup. So like,
Yeah.
which I was going through my kind of cloud backup process I use for like Dropbox and Google Drive, and I was like, they're actually, and I had this big 10 terabyte drive I use on my desktop computer. I store a lot of video on. I was like, I should also be backing that up, but I'm not going to back this up to one of those services. So I'm trying out Backblaze and seeing how well that works as like an overall kind of like disaster backup solution if I totally lose my computer.
I'm telling you, I love my Synology. Now individual
is that
computers,
it's also that's backing up still to a device like a RAID style device.
Well,
right?
you're right. I have a RAID device in my office, and that's just.
But is it backing up to the cloud too?
All my data goes, but then yes, I have that set up to back up to their backup offering, which I believe is just them reselling Backblaze's B2, and Backblaze's B2 is their S3 compatible kind of just. Well, it's S3 compatible.
Yeah.
And for Backblaze doesn't have a Linux offering. So when you ask them how do you back up Linux, they say use anything and then just choose S3 and choose us as the S3 URL because we're S3 compatible. Some applications support them natively, but for my Linux box, I just rsync to Synology because I've got so much space there. And then Synology, all of my data there is backed up to Synology's offering, which, like I say, I think is just their kind of, rebranded Backblaze, essentially.
Are you just rsyncing everything, or are you just doing specific kind of paths, or how you doing the rsync? Because I looked at that.
On Linux, I'm just rsyncing my home directory.
Just home directory?
Because from a Linux standpoint, that's pretty much it. There shouldn't be stuff other places that you need.
How does that work? How often does it back it up? Does it just look at file changes, or does it have like a
rsync is smart that way. It compares file stamps. I think it does checksums to see if the file's changed, and then it only changes the diff. And when I say rsync, I may be wrong. I'm sorry. I'll probably use rdiff backup.
So not just it does
change. It does it over rsync, like it uses the rsync protocol. I'm pretty sure, but rdiff backup will give me this is the backup as of today, and it's just the diff of changes. So I have historical.
So it'll that makes sense for like a text. So it also will diff like a binary file.
This is how often I do it. I'm sorry. No, I'm wrong. I'm doing rsync. I'm not doing. I had played around with a bunch of stuff on the Linux side, as to what I wanted to do because of that limitation that I use Backblaze for all my Windows machines, because it's just I want it to be simple.
Yeah,
I know how to set up my own backup routines. I don't want to have to do that. For me, it's just hey, I can just run it. So let's do it that way. For Linux, I went through a bunch of different tests. Am I going to back up to B2? And if I was going to do B2, I would use something like, there's rdiff backup, and something that starts with a D, and I can't remember what it starts with, or what the application is. But it would back up, and it would do those sequential backups. But because I'm using Synology's backup from the NAS to their C2, or C3, or C, whatever they call it, I forget what they call it. But I'm using Synology's backup. That does snapshots. So from my Linux box to there, I just do an rsync, which I think just looks through, detects the differences, probably using checksums and last updated timestamps, and it just copies over the differences smartly. So for me to do the rsync doesn't take a whole lot of time, and then that updates it on my local NAS, and then my NAS is always backed up. So
is your Synology over the network, or is it like a direct connection to your computer, your desktop computer?
It's over the network. I actually think I have two. Not that I need it, but I think I have both Ethernet ports plugged in. So
I was using the Drobo for a while. I still have it, but I don't use it because of the speed. I always felt it was a little bit slow.
I've not had any problem. I think it works pretty fast. Now I don't work off of it so much. It's not like I have it as a network drive, but for the few things that I do as a network drive, it's pretty fast. But yeah, I'm rsyncing, so like development work is local to this machine. But I'm really happy with it.
All right.
It's also good because like I'm assuming you're in the same spot. hard drives on hard drives of like, oh, this is old stuff. This is you know, I'll remember this from that other computer that crashed, but I still wanted to keep the data just in case I need to get to it at some point, or I copied over what I needed. All these hard drives, I just plugged them in and just copied them all in NAS.
I know, I was going over all the files I have, like all the zip files. What you do, I'll archive all projects as a tar zip file.
Right.
I have projects from like 20 years ago. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to open up again, but it just feels good to know that I have them.
Yep. So, hey, we can talk about, I have an old disk that I'm trying to still look and see if I can open up. We'll talk about that next week.